Hey everyone, it's Georgina Lewis with the Georgie Girl Sew Along, and we're continuing our series on the Easy Sunday Quilt. So now by this point, you should have cut out all your fabrics. I've taken mine. I like to use a little bolt holder, you know, the wrap from the bolts and the fabrics that I received, and I mark each fabric and I number it. By now you should have all these fabrics cut out from your kit. Okay, and I label them all. And so then after I do that, and I've got a bunch of fabrics obviously. After I do that, before I actually start sewing, what I want to do is I want to start laying them out. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the next step in making the Easy Sunday Quilt. We are going to recap the tuffet and the pillows that we've had made, and then we will get to the rug. I got the rug at Market from Roberta Leonard and that also Sally, and that rug is in my luggage, and it just landed from the quilt market in Houston, and it was so much fun. I mean, I should just do a one-night recap of what quilt market is all about and how much fun that was. But for now, let's start talking about the Easy Sunday. I know that on the wall, Jan Danneman has been helping me respond to questions about the Easy Sunday. And there's a lot of questions that come into play about directional fabric. So I'm gonna put our woven pillow over to the side. And that little woven pillow, by the way, for all you guys in the Easy Sunday, this pillow is going to be gifted to someone in our group who's making the complete bedroom set with pillow shams like we have over here, and a tuffet, and an Easy Sunday quilt. You don't have to have our kit. You can make your own kit and you can use your own fabrics, but we want to see you guys make some of these great accessories, because who wants to have a bed without matching pillowcases, right? So you want pillow shams actually at the top of your quilt to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little handy dandy stool, set it down, and we're going to talk real quick about this Easy Sunday. Now do me a favor, just like we do at the beginning of every Easy Sunday session, I'd like for you to go on to the wall, and I'd like for you to chat, not on the wall, but here in this Zoom meeting, there is a chat button, and you can click on that, and a little window comes up, and you can chat there, and you can let us know if you can hear us, because if you can't hear me, then I'm going to stop and make sure that we start over. I don't want you to just watch my hands move all night and not hear anything that I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get started. On the Easy Sunday Quilt, I've started to lay mine out, and I am substituting some different fabrics, but I'm not going to talk about that quite yet. I'm going to talk about the kit that came, the pattern, and also some of the topics on directional fabric. So, you know, this is your quilt. You do it any way you want, but everyone should have their Easy Sunday pattern with them. This is a free pattern. You can get it at download at our website at pettingfabric.com. Go to the kit, and it'll be sold out. But you just click on the downloadable pattern, and you can download the free pattern here. One of the things that I want to point out to you about this pattern is you can see the colorways here and the different colors that go into progression. So this helps you kind of study. There's actually a better one. If you go to the back of the last page, I think it is, it's just got straight colors here. So it doesn't have the fabric patterns themselves in the block, but it has, you know, red, orange, blue, yellows. So if you're substituting your own fabrics, this kind of gives you a map or a guideline to go by. So when you do this, it looks pretty straightforward, but actually we've got some little tidbits we want to share with you. Okay, so Chris, I just lost video. I don't know if that's a problem over here. I'm going to keep going though. Okay, so with this Easy Sunday Quilt, you should by now have all your squares cut out. And so when you do your squares, you're going to want to pay attention to this pattern. I'm going to put on my glasses just so that I don't get it wrong when I'm talking. So the directional fabric and this the purple squares, before I start pinning them, I really kind of pay attention to these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, okay? And these 5 blocks are going to give me an indication of the purple in the top right corner of each one of these fabrics. Now, I did substitute a fabric, so let me show this to you real quick. Let me take this one down and take this one down, and I'm going to put these 2 up. Okay, so now this is how your quilt should look. So your layout. So what you're going to do based on the pattern, right? So you're paying attention to the little teeny squares at opposite ends. And what you're going to do is make it look like a movement of fabric going a certain way when it does up and down. So what I mean by that is this corner would end up here. This is a design wall. Most of you all know what a design wall is. But here's our movement. So I place these on here ahead of time so I can get a real good indication of what this is going to look like. Now, of course, this is a full square. And what you're going to do is like a folded clipper corner tool. And so you're going to clip those corners and not have a full square. But doing this will give you a real good indication of how this quilt's going to lay out. And then you're going to get kind of a 3D look once you get them all in. So once I come here, and I'm putting up all my squares that I've cut out, right? And that comes here. We're paying attention to these, right? You see your purple squares. All of a sudden, what happens with your purple square, I'm going to show you, this is, when you come here, this one actually is going to kind of give you that look, where it's pointing down. So I'm simulating it for you, but you're looking for that kind of feel. And this is important that you lay it out. I'm going to explain why in just a minute. So when I come through here, this square doesn't go on this one, but I just want to give you that impression because it goes on these 2 and they shouldn't miter up together. Okay, so now here's the thing. When you put these things together, and you've got this guy going right here, this is just for you to get an impression of what this is going to look like, okay? So again, I'm still doing right corners, top, bottom left. But I want to show you what the problem we're about to run into. If you are OCD, and this will bother you after you sew it together, you need to pay attention to your directional fabric. And Jan has, indicated what numbers those are that you can go ahead and sew and which ones you should not have sewn by now. And I'm about to show you some options that you have. So this guy is going to end up over here. Okay. So I think you guys are getting the gist of this, right? You understand? I don't have to put all these up. You kind of get the gist here. See how the flow goes like this? And then these would go like this? When you go to the other wave is going to be just the opposite. But here's our problem. If this doesn't bother you and you just like a free-flowing quilt, then you don't need to worry about this part of the class. But I particularly like to have my quilt flow a certain way, and I like, when I look at it, to be all symmetrical. And so this pattern here is very different. They do not look like it's an extension of itself with the tops going across like this. This particular square I've turned sideways to show you, if you don't pay attention where you're sewing on those corners, because there's only 2 corners that are getting purple, the opposite corners, then by the time you get done, your pattern might flow like this. So if you lay it out first, you're going to see that these 2 are not like a line of rows of colors. And for me personally, I'm going to want to turn this one. And I want to put it like this. Okay? And then, obviously, that gets sewn. By the time you get this done, you've got the corner here, right? but it's in the middle. So I'm just going to put it. That's the feel you're looking for, okay? So you need to pay attention to these guys. You need to see if this down below, if you want this down and this up so they look like a bridge together, or if you want that turned around like this one is, where it's always on the top. It's a personal preference. When you look at the pattern, it's going to be mixed up just to show you that it's very free-forming in any way that you want to do it. Some of the other fabrics you might want to pay attention to, and I put the zigzags in here, even though your pattern calls for the squiggles right now, I wanted to show you when you get to the bottom of the quilt how to pay attention to your zigzags. Okay, so let's replace the zigzags. So when you get to the rows with the zigzags, you'll pay attention to this directional fabric as well. They could go like that. So the zigzags are sideways, they're up and down, they're sideways, or you can put all your zigzags up and down. This becomes a personal preference again. If you want your zigzags to go like so, where they're going together, they are batiks. So the batik is going to be, it's all been hand done by ink, so it's not a perfect color of ink anyway. So you just decide which way you want that to flow in colorway, find two that go together or mix it up, and then put them together. And I cut them, and I paid attention, and I fussy cut these. So my zigzag, look at this. See how that zigzag continues right there? Again, that's a personal preference. You do it however you want, but I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, then you need to think about your flowers. And I like to alternate my flowers. And most of you know that this past weekend, I went to Quilt Market, but the weekend before that, I went to a cave class and a workshop with Kaffe and Brandon. And I was fortunate enough that Kaffe picked out yellow for me. I picked out yellow, but he picked out yellow fabrics and oranges and greens and all those cool colors. And, he really taught me a lot as far as getting outside my comfort zone. But when I do make some quilts, I still am conservative in the way that I want it to flow. So with that thought in mind, I'm going to think about these flowers. And it's hard when you get a kit or you buy fabric and it has patterns on it. You can't always perfectly cut it the way you want. But with this kit, you do have at least 2 or 3 flowers together at one time when you're cutting those strips that would coordinate. So if that's important to you, make sure that you coordinate those ones that were cut out of the same strip here. So maybe this one you can see is sideways. So maybe that's okay with you, but maybe you might want to turn this so when this is sitting on your bed, all the flowers are going the same way. This, again, is a directional fabric that you need to pay attention to when you're sewing on those squares. So what I like to do is lay out all my colors first, and then go back to the pattern, and I'll pin where the squares go so I don't forget. It is a little bit of extra work, but it's so worth it in the end for me because I'm not redoing it. Now, one of the things, I'm going to turn on my flowers the way I want them, and I really took some time. I took some time to figure out this layout of flowers. I like having these alternating flowers here. I'll call them like the little minis. So I've got little minis. I have some tulips in some of my cuts. I have some of my cuts that are just random, but that's okay. But I'm going to match the alternating ones that go up and down this particular line. So for my comfort zone, I'm not going to want to put this one here, okay? Because that line is running right here. The fabric cut I got, when I cut it, the fabric line was there, and here the fabric line is down there. But I did cut 2 rows, and when I did that, I got 2 side by side that had that same pattern. So for me, that's upside down. For me, that flows. I like this look. I like it to pick back up and continue, and that's up to you. But you could always take this, and if you imagine this might be a garden, and this is where the ground is, and the flowers are growing out of that ground and up. So they're above the ground here, and then they bloom above that row. So it's just kind of, how do you see your quilt? What is important to you? Do you want a tulip in here? These are things you need to think about in your patterns, okay? So now, once you get this laid out and the flow, then you can start pinning your purple squares, because your purples are going to give you this effect here of being in the top, and then in the next rows, they're going to be on the bottom. So you'll pay attention to that pattern, you'll see a different flow. And one of the other fabrics that's very similar to this one is a pink, and it has these same rows of color. So you'll want to pay attention when you cut these, and all of these cut for me in the same row of my strip. I'm going to pay attention how I lay those out. So it really is, that's all this is. If you don't have a design board, this is just a piece of plywood I got at Lowe's. I put this Kaffe Fassett design fabric on it. I actually got this one from the class. And then boom, turn around and I lay my stuff out. If you don't have a design board, use a table. It's really that easy. Now, let's talk about how could we change up these fabrics, or what should I do if I don't have a kit, but I'm using my own fabrics. In that example, what I want you to do, and so I'm going to show you, I'm going to use most of my Easy Sunday patterns for this and quilts. So if you guys do have a kit, you just want to swap out one or two fabrics, and Colleen, of course, you know, I think of you because you're such a great sewer and quilter, and I know that you're probably already thinking how you're going to change up your fabrics, and I can't wait to see what you do. But for me, I want to change up my fabric slightly. I want to change my blue out to this pretty case. So this is not going to be my blue. Remember, this is your quilt. You do it any way you want. So one option you have, I have flyaways, sorry. Okay, just a second. So one option you have is swap out just one fabric if you want. I thought this blue really picked up the oranges and the blues well. So let me show you that look. I love the geometric shapes next to the pumpkin rake because I thought it played off of itself really well. But check this out. Did you notice I did these upside down? So maybe these are something you might want to flip around, or maybe you're okay with this being a little different. But this one and this one are opposite directions. Now, when I got this up here the other day, I was looking at this before I left to go to Quilt Market. I really said I love it, but I like the flow of the lesson that we did with the Tuffet. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it up just a little. And if you want to change it up, you need to take really good notes. So this part of this session tonight is a little more advanced. It's not for the beginner unless you feel like you want to tackle it. What you want to do, if you're going to change up rows, then you need to remark your pattern fabrics and keep track. I'm only going to change 3. I'm going to change B, C, and F. That's what I'm comfortable with. So when I did that, I went to the cutting instructions and I swapped B, C, and F, and then I turned around and on the wall, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. This is just a little more intermediate type of a step, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put, I want my raked pumpkin, which happens to be one of my all-time favorite fabrics for, and you guys saw this, Like I had the Tuffet lady, PJ Cartwright, put it as my button, and my grounded fabric here, right? And of course it's on the bottom of my Tuffet. Okay, so because that's one of my favorites, I want to put that one next to my flower. And that's okay, you can do that. You just need to make sure you change your pattern, write it, and then mark the right number of cups. For me, let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move everything down a row. I'm going to put my oranges next to my flowers. I like yellow-orange. I'm going to go yellow-orange. Then I'm going to put yellow-orange, yellow-orange. This is an easy pattern to follow that Linda and Carl Sullivan did. I love this quilt, and it allows you to change it up, okay? So I'm moving my oranges down a row. Okay. Now, I'm only doing one row at a time when I play with fabrics. So what I've done, if you guys can see in the colorways, is instead of going yellow, red, orange, I'm moving my oranges down. Then I'm going to move my blues down. Starting at the top, I'm following this row. I'm putting my blues here. And then I'm going to find another blue, which I had them all nice, neatly stacked before I started here. But now that I've been pulling stuff off so quickly, they got a little discombobulated. And I'm going to put this here. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? You know I'm shifting everything down one, okay? So I've got one more to find and put up, which are going to be my batik, orange and blues. Because I have everything pinned, this is just my first set that I'm dealing with. I'm not messing with any of these. They're still sitting here just fine, waiting for the future. And this helps me in my color board. Like before I even get on the wall, I see my color flow and I like it. This is the only change I'm making, okay? So I'm moving things down. I did swap out my blue. I'm moving everything down one, like so. That's cute, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to put my squiggles back up there, but I'm only going to use two of them. If I can find its partner in crime right here. So for me, I like this flow. You know, I kind of progressed very simply from my green yellows to my blues, just light blue floweries, into my yellow flowers, my pumpkin rose, my blue, blue, orange, and then my pop of red, because I'm pulling that red right back down here. And then I'm going to continue on as normal in this. I like that flow. For me, this is what I'm comfortable with, and this is how I'm going to change mine. So that's the Easy Sunday recap of how you should lay out your pattern, lay out all your rows. Then this week, sew on all your squares. And then next week, we're going to start sewing by the time we get together next Tuesday, so we're doing Tuesday nights. I'm going to have all my rows sewn. I'm going to have all my purple squares sewn on. And then we're going to start talking about the binding and the backing. So before we say goodbye, I want to kind of recap something that we did, we've talked about before, which is the scraps left over in your kit. So we talked about when you cut this Easy Sunday, the pattern itself is generous. You're going to have strips left over. And if you'd like to make a tuffet, you need about 1 3/4 strip. Technically, you could get to 1.5 strips. But the strip for this tuffet requires that you have, and I'm going to get the tuffet recap, you have to have 4 sections of 16 strips. All right, so a width of fabric would make 2 strips. And so you can get 2 full strips with the fabric, you cut them into 4, and you have 16 patterns. You do not have to repeat them all, but you have to anchor them. We talked about that in the first webinar. But you need to count up your scrap from cutting this kit. And you need to make sure when you're cutting that you have 1 3/4 inch left for that tuffet. The tuffet's the easiest thing to make out of this kit. The second thing we talked about in detail, but I didn't give you sizes except one other week, and I want to recap that again because I got questions about it, is the woven pillows, okay? So the woven pillow, Jan Danneman is going to give us an Excel spreadsheet to help you with this and a pattern. So anyone who has a Westy tool, we're going to give you, you just need to email us or post on the sew along wall, and we will give you the Excel for this. So you know the exact sizes. These strips, okay, are 2 inches folded, like, you know, inch in the middle and then 2.5 inches into each side and folded into 1 inch strips. So if you don't have quite 2 inches, you could wing it, but then you probably want that Cutter Polar glass mat that has a ruler on it so you can press an exact 1 inch strip on there for these particular strips. Once you get all these 1 inch strips together, you could weave it, but you need some basic instructions for how to do that. So Jan's going to help us with that. So that's your 2 inch scrap. And remember, this pillow is 19 by 26, but I think you could do, this one's actually 20 by 26, but I think you could do 19 by 25, which is 1 full width of fabric. So that way, you know, this has a lot of generous room in that. See this pillow here? And this is a large foam pillow that I have in here. So I think you could do a pillow sham. This is not to be slept on. It's not a pillowcase. This is a decorative item that goes on your bed. This is a pillow sham. And I think you could go 19 by 25 and you'd be good with that 2 inch strip left over. But you got to have a lot of them. You have to have 26 of them, okay? So you're going to be repeating some fabrics because there's only 22 fabrics in this quilt. And how we did this, again, was dark to light. So I put all the lights on one end. I had Jan weave them, all the lights on one side and all the darks in another corner. Okay, the third item that we're going to actually talk about next week, because Roberta gave me that rug just a couple days ago at a conference, and it's in my luggage, and I made it home, but the luggage isn't here yet. And Jan, I hope, you know, I don't want to freak you out. You might be sewing it again if it gets lost, but I pray it won't. But that rug is going to require 2.5 inch strips. So you need 2.5 inch strips for a jelly roll rug. I'm going to show you the rug next week, and we're going to talk about the awesome fusible items. And Jan has some tips for us, and so she's going to write up those instructions. Oso Sally is also selling the fabric pack. If you need extra fabrics, you can get them from Oso Sally, and she's selling those so that you can make your rug and possibly one of the pillows. If you could go 1/4 of a yard or 1/8 of a yard. 1/8 of a yard would probably get you a pillow, and 1/4 of a yard of each fabric would get you a rug and maybe a pillow with your scraps. So that's this week's session. As you all know, after we go through all the weeks, I say goodbye, we stop recording, I pull the computer close, and we go through question by question. If you guys have any questions in your chat, I want to answer those now. So for everyone who's watching this on YouTube and Facebook, have a great week, and we'll see you next week when this baby is sewn together, and we'll be talking about the complete bedroom set, the binding options, the backing options, the batting options, and of course the rug. So, goodbye and talk to you next week.